and I'm going to make the decisions that aren't going to allow me to overcome it, aren't going to allow me to become stronger.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, what's important is recognizing and identifying what I am holding as my person. Who am I telling myself I am? Is that the way I want to define myself, and why? Because it's very limiting, and it also sometimes results in a person, and even society sometimes does this, seeing the person as somehow wounded, broken, fragile.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with them. Whereas, I kind of like it's when you break a bone or you get a cut, you have a scar or a reminder, but it's usually, as the Japanese say, we're stronger in the broken places.
You said it like I knew that they said that.
Well,
I don't
stronger in the broken, stronger in the broken places.
No, I'm not familiar with that very common Japanese phrase.
It's like the Japanese pottery that is crashed when they pull it, the raku that is, when they pull it from the kiln, it breaks. And what they do is they take those pieces and they rebond them with gold. And it actually becomes a more beautiful piece of pottery than it would have been had it just come
Well, I should have
out
done that to this pot that I bought in Mexico that broke on the flight. Because it looks pretty bad.
Well, maybe you ought to rebond.
I super glued it. It's probably not stronger in the broken place.
You need to paint the super glue with gold leaf.
Paint it gold, and then I'll look really cultured.
Gold leaf on there,
instead of like I have broken pottery on display. What do you think's been the most difficult decision that you had to make as a counselor?
Well, part of the hardest decisions is not making decisions for your client, because ethically that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
And people who are used to having been controlled, or
they might really want.
They really want that. And so I think just not falling for the making decision for your client piece is probably the hardest, because it takes a tremendous amount of will, and also risking offending or alienating the person because you're not willing to make that decision for them. But so that's just one part of being.
Do you find that some people are responding angrily to that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine.
Yeah. And I think...
What am I paying you for if you can't tell me what to do here?
Well, yeah.
That kind of,
exactly.
Really coming at you hard.
Exactly. And so let's say, how can my role is not to make your decisions for you, because then I'm responsible for your decisions, and that's not my role. But my role is to help you find a process that works for you, that helps you decide what is going to be in your best interest. And I can give you information about that. I can give you procedures and processes.
It's a form of leadership, right? It's less, it entangles the relationship once you give advice. Because if the client receives that advice, accepts that advice, and then it doesn't work out, well, then it's all about you. You messed up. If they hear that advice, listen to that advice, and don't do it, then you're sitting there thinking they're a complete idiot. So
well, then you have power over them. Well, it didn't work out, and
you should have done what I told you to do. Yeah.
So, what process do you have somebody go through who's really wanting you to make a decision, right? Who's not accustomed to making their own decisions, doesn't want to, but is at a point where they need to, other than saying, you have to decide, it's not my role to decide, you have to decide. How do you get someone from a point of indecision to decision?
Well, and again, there has to be an assumption that this is a relationship of trust, and this is a relationship that has been built over time, and that we've explored a lot of the dynamics that have gone into the person's decision making in the past. And so they come to the counseling session with a specific question, then I'm going to, ask them, let's just maybe write out, and I will ask them to write it out in session, because if I say, when you go home today, you might want to write out a cost and benefits, or a plus and minuses, and they're generally not going to do it. But if they do it in session, then it's there, and they're actually engaging in a cost benefits analysis, or at least not maybe analysis, but at least an observation of, and then there's the process of time traveling. Let's say you make this decision, what would it look like in 5 years?
Yeah.
Let's say you don't make the decision, how do you see yourself in 5 years? Or how do you want to see yourself in 5 years? What decisions do you need to make to get to that?
Or is this even going to matter in 5 years? Yeah.
Well, if you ask them
right
to time travel in 5 years, they may realize
the power of that is so much more profound than I even thought. I did an exercise where I basically wrote out in like a novel format what my ideal day or perfect day would be. I think it was a typical day, not perfect day, but typical day 5 years from now. I did this like a year ago. And I did it with a group of friends who all did it, and we read it to each other. And I wrote it like a novel. I didn't just list out 6 a.m. alarm goes off, 6:15, go for a run. I didn't write it like that. I tried to be creative with it. And it's only been 1 year, and like a lot of the things already had happened.
There is so much power in that. I think I may have told you, I was going through cleaning out some stuff when we moved offices, and I found some old business plans that they were, from 10 years prior, and pulled one out. And all of these aspirations that I had written down, like all of them, had come true. And some were in my personal life, some were business. The numbers had all been met.
I think you feel like you actually owe it to yourself more.
It was interesting. And what was funny is that I had not looked at that document in. Yeah, I kind of did it, and then I guess it was internalized. It wasn't something I was referring.
You almost don't have to because you wrote it down. I think, at least this is the way I think about it, is I wrote that thing down, which means that I took it seriously, which means I owe it to myself to do the thing that I said was serious, right? Whereas I just think about it for a little, I think I might need to lose weight, or I think I should eat better, or I think I should stop.
Right. It's kind of the worst lie you can tell is the lie to yourself. Like, I'm going to do this and write that down, and then if you have no intention of ever doing it.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't have written it down if it wasn't important. And if it's important, oh my gosh, I have to do it.
There's a name for what we're talking about, and that's why journaling is encouraged.
I don't know
just
about
across
all that.
The board. We don't want to get into that. That's too touchy-feely. That might hit on tenderness, and that's not a masculine character. But it's called externalization. And when you make something external and concrete by writing it down, then it's not just floating around as an aspiration or a daydream or a thought or some kind of nebulous future goal. It becomes concretized. And there's something very powerful about that process. And I don't quite understand it. And it's not really been explained satisfactorily to me. It just is one of those is.
It just is.
It's just one of those things that is.
Yeah. What advice would you give to other counselors in how to defeat bad decision making in their own profession?
Pretty much the same thing that we've been talking about. First of all, get a lot of information about yourself. get a lot of information about your clients, get a lot of training, as much training as you can on a variety of approaches and theories and ideas
God bless.
that you can, and just do those things.
I made it almost an hour without sneezing. Oh my gosh. No, that makes a lot of sense. Before we wrap up, I really want to get your thoughts on one last decision, and that is, why'd you put the pineapples in the sweet potatoes?
That's it. I think you've made a lot of good decisions. I don't think that one falls into that category.
So context here.
I had those at.
Well, give the context of what happened.
I had sweet potatoes with pineapple and pecan caramelized on the top in a casserole that one of your father's cousins had made for a Thanksgiving dinner that we attended in Dallas, and I really liked it. I thought it was really great. So you cooked sweet potato casserole with brown sugar and marshmallows every year for Thanksgiving for as long as I can remember.
A big hit, by the way.
By the way, best dish at Thanksgiving.
Yes.
By the way, best dish at anyone's Thanksgiving, I would say, is better than whatever anybody else had for Thanksgiving. It was the best. I'm going to definitively say in Texas, better than cornbread.
Okay, all right. No,
better than some people they
great.
smoke their turkey.
The pineapple, the year that happened, when she put the pineapple in the sweet potato casserole, was her new Coke. It was.
So you okay? But the people need to understand as they examine this, as they learn about decision making. You made a hitter every year, a number one, a 5-star, A+++ Hall of Fame of Thanksgiving dishes, and then you decided,
yes,
to insert a fruit into that dish.
Not everybody disliked it.
Those people were not straightforward with you.
There were members of your family that I hate to say it, lied to your face, and they said that they liked it. And I'm telling you this out of love, because is best dish of all time. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to publicly defend that decision that you made, because it's the only bad one I can point to in your whole life.
Oh my gosh! I wish. Don't I wish?
The only one I've been a part of.
If adding crushed pineapple to the sweet potato casserole is the number one offense, hey, I feel good about that. I feel okay about that. And there's no defense for it. I just liked it, and I thought, well, this would be nice for a change. And it obviously was a failure, and it was soundly dismissed, and I have not been able to live it down, this many years.
Like 15 years?
I don't know, but it's been a long time.
All right, well...
I've gotten over it, but nobody else has.
Because we had to eat it, man.
No, I didn't eat it. Okay, so let's go through our takeaways. My takeaway when I talked through that discussion, I had a learning, and that was around why people go back to relationships that are abusive after exiting one or suffering trauma, coming back around. And it was really around trying to gain mastery over that issue. And so that was something I hadn't heard before. But also in looking at figuring out where you are and what role you're playing in a relationship in order to get back through something, having to figure out what role you are. Am I a survivor? Was I a victim? That I thought was really interesting too.
My takeaway was that we have to be very conscious of our mindsets and the way that we perceive ourselves, because that can inform some biases in how we react to new events, particularly emotional events, and that can inform the decisions that we make. So Matt talked about victim mindset, the martyr mindset, the survivor mindset, and the thriver mindset. I was like, man, yeah,